Should the Seattle Seahawks retain any of their restricted free agents in the 2025 offseason? What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Made it to Sunday, 1 week before the Super Bowl, although we are mostly thinking about other things over here on this channel, like, for instance, free agents, outgoing free agents for the Seattle Seahawks. Yesterday, we made our final video about the outgoing unrestricted free agents, but we've got a couple more videos to make here to talk about the restricted and the exclusive rights free agents. So this video is going to be about the guys who are restricted, and we only have 2 of them this year, so it's not going to be a lot to talk about, but we do need to establish what a restricted free agent is. So basically, restricted free agency gives the team additional mechanisms by which to keep a player and make it harder for another team to take that player, or make it harder for the player to leave. So it gives the team additional leverage. So these are projections, but these come from Over the Cap, and Over the Cap typically does pretty good work. So we're going to take a look at Over the Cap's projections for the 2025 restricted free agent tenders. So understand that these numbers may change. They probably won't. This will probably be at least so close to the meaningful amounts that it may as well be on the nose. So here's how it works. And by the way, there used to be an original round tender, but that's not really going to matter for our purposes this year. So if they got rid of it completely and it just doesn't exist anymore, then that's fine by us because we're not going to utilize it in all likelihood. And if Spotrac just hasn't had the opportunity to, or Over the Cap, excuse me, hasn't had the opportunity to add their entry for the original round tender, then so be it. But basically what you can do when you have a free agent that is restricted, you can place a tender on them, and that tender is basically a 1-year contract at a set amount of money. And that amount of money will change every year based on the salary cap, based on basically the decisions of the league. And the player can either sign the tender and play on the contract, so effectively a 1-year deal. He can request that the team either remove the tender or give him a multi-year extension, or he can retire. There's really not much you can do as a player if somebody puts the restricted tag on you, except maybe hope that another team comes in and offers more money. So it's basically a way to say, if we want to keep the player, we can keep the player unless another team comes in with a better offer, and in some cases, they're even going to have to give something up to make a deal actually happen. So, for example, in 2025, which is this current offseason, there are 3 levels of restricted tender that you can put on a player. First round, second round, and then right of first refusal. The first round tender is going to be about $7.3 million. So basically, you're slapping a 1-year, $7.3 million deal on a player. The player is obligated to sign it. And if another team wants that player, they have to sign them to a contract bigger than the tender, so it would have to be more than the $7.3 million. And if they succeed in signing the player, they need to give you a first-round pick. There's the second-round tender, which is the same thing, except the amount is different, $5.2 million approximately, call it 5.22. And if another team comes in with a bigger offer because they want to take the player away, they have to give you a second-round pick if they're successful. And then there's right of first refusal tender, which is if another team comes in and tops the offer, the team that put the tender on initially has the opportunity to match or exceed the offer of the other team and basically create a bidding war where eventually one of the teams will tap out, and then the value of the player's 1-year deal will be set there. So in previous years, there's been an original round tender, which was set at an amount in between second round and right of first refusal, where any player that was drafted would be able to have a draft pick compensation of the original round. So for instance, if you had a player that was drafted in the 4th round and you put the original round tender on them, and then another team came in and outbid you, that team that outbid you would be required to send back a 4th round pick. That's not listed here. I don't know if they discontinued that. I don't know if it's just not listed here. Doesn't really matter. It's not something we're going to use this year, but that is basically how restricted free agency works. It's a way for the original team to always have the option to keep the player. So hopefully that's all clear. Hopefully that's all understood. Now, like I said, we only have 2 players that are eligible for restricted free agency this year. The first one is Josh Jobe. Now, Josh Jobe was a player who I wasn't even thinking about when the season started. Didn't even really know he existed. But after some stuff happened with Trey Brown, where Trey Brown really wasn't playing that well, I think we also had a little bit of a Reek Woolen injury around the time that Josh Jobe showed up. And Jobe actually played really well for the Seahawks over the 10 games that he got action. He started 6 games. He had the first interception of the season on Josh Allen. He was making plays on the ball early in his tenure as a serious member of the Seahawks. He was good for what he is. Like, I understand that Josh Jobe's no Devin Witherspoon. He's not even really a Reek Woolen, but he plays hard. He played fairly well. His coverage numbers are pretty decent. He can play outside, and I personally think this is a no-brainer. You keep this guy. You're definitely trying to keep this guy, especially if you're trading Woolen, which I'm doing, and I'm letting Trey Brown go, which I'm doing. Josh Jobe and Artie Burns, that's your cornerback depth, right? You're going into 2025 with Witherspoon, Jobe, and Burns as your starting corners, and you're trying to add another one in free agency or the draft that you trust more than Artie Burns. But Jobe's part of the picture. Jobe is probably going to play non-trivial snaps in 2025, and I'm down with that. I think he played good. I think he's a decent enough player. Question is, do you want to use the tender on him, or do you want to just let him let the tender expire and then just give him a normal contract? Because you can do that. You can just say, we're not going to tender him, but we are going to try to sign him. Would you do that? I don't think so. I think that his play last year and his ability warrants the right of first refusal tag. I would not go second round. I would not go first round. I think that's too much money, and I don't think any team would even consider giving up a first round or second round pick for Jobe, of course. That would be very, very, that would very much get a GM fired, I would think. But right of first refusal is fine. So 1 year, $3.2 million. He's definitely worth that in my book. And if somebody comes in and they try to outbid us a little bit, if they try to go to like 3.3, then I'm willing to climb the ladder up to like 4 million. So climb the ladder up to 1 year, 4 million if needed, but I don't think it will be. I think that 3.2 million will get it done. So let's get that right of first refusal restricted tender on him. So I am a yes on Jobe. The other restricted free agent we have is Jaelon Darden. Jaelon Darden, picked him up in the middle of the season to return punts and kicks. Former 4th round pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which might matter because of the original round tender maybe existing and maybe not existing anymore. I haven't been able to find anything official on that yet, but I don't think it's really going to matter either way for this one in actuality. So, when Jaelon Darden got here, I don't think he ever lined up at receiver for us. He did line up a little bit at receiver for the Browns when he was there, and he did play a little bit of receiver at Tampa. But for the most part, Jaelon Darden is one thing and one thing only, a special teams guy. He returns punts and he returns kicks. And when he got here, midway through the season, I thought he did both pretty well. Didn't fumble, didn't look lost out there. He didn't look at all confused when he was trying to field kicks and punts. Had some pretty decent returns. And I am definitely in favor of bringing Jaelon Darden back for 2025. But here's the thing. I don't think you can justify giving him the 3.2. Right of first refusal is too high. Jaelon Darden has very little, maybe not any upside as a wide receiver. He's just a punt returner and a kick returner, and I value that. I would be willing to go as high as 1 year, $2 million for Darden, but I'm not going to 3.2. No way, no how. So you don't tender him, and then you just re-sign him normally. And if he leaves, then it sucks, but you can try to find somebody else to replace him, and it's not the end of the world. So for me, no tender. I personally think because Jaelon Darden has been so invisible in his career as a wide receiver, we're talking about a guy with 75 career receiving yards in, well, four seasons, right? We're talking about somebody who has had an opportunity to play receiver in the NFL and just has done nothing with it. I think you can probably get him for the minimum, which I believe for him would be 1 year, 1.1 million. So I think you could get him for that. I don't see any need to go above that. I would be willing to go a little above it, maybe as much as 2 million, because I really want to have a punt returner and kick returner I can trust in 2025. But I'm not willing to go that far overboard to do it. I'll go a little overboard, but not 3.2 overboard. So that's my evaluation. Not tendering Darden, but I am keeping him, and I am tendering Jobe at the lowest level, 3.2. And I'm willing to climb the ladder a little bit on both guys if that's what it takes to keep them, because I do value them and I do want them. All right, let me know what you guys think. See you guys later. Go Hawks. That is what I currently have for the restricted guys. One more video later today with the exclusive rights free agents, and then we're moving on.